Happy Tuesday, traders. This is Tanner with Charting Options. Today is December 14th, and I am quickly here to recap today's day trade ideas, talk about the price action that transpired today itself, discuss the levels to the upside and the downside, and the rationale behind how those were set. We had 4 different trade ideas: AFRM. Let's see if I remember the other 3. SPY and Uber. I know I traded myself. What was the third? Draftkings, which I did not trade, but provided a good trade to the downside. 3 of those triggered to the downside, including Draftkings. Uber triggered to the upside, which was very against the grain today and provided quite a pop really quick after triggering. So we'll talk about all of those, obviously, end with Uber. We'll go in alphabetical order. I do want to preface that this is the 10-minute time frame. All candles represent 10 minutes of price action. The color tone changes in the chart itself on the screen in front of you. You can see as I move my cursor, represents an entire day of price action. So here on the AFRM chart, this darker vertical box represents all of today's price action. This will be tomorrow, and then this was yesterday, Monday's price action. So without further ado, I will begin. You can see coming into the day, AFRM was working through this descending channel. I will, quickly before I get there, just to take a step back, I have not marked these up, so I will mark them up with you. Okay. AFRM was working through this descending channel today, or coming into the day here. It closed right here. Price gap down considerably, and I knew that coming into the session. I was cognizant of that, so I used this low from the 3rd of December as our trigger to the downside, just below 104 support. If you look further in time, that has acted as an area, a pivot point before. You can see here on the 6th of December, it acted as a pivot to the upside. Price came up and tested it for 30 minutes before it finally cleared and ripped. So we wanted to see that level hold. If not, it was or there was potential to take a trade short. And you can see for about a little over an hour today, price used that area as support. It wicked it a bunch and never giving us a 10-minute candle close below. It finally got the 10-minute candle close below here right at about 11 o'clock this afternoon Eastern Standard Time. Gave us a retest of that level, wicked it a bunch, and then flushed to the low of the day right at 101.35. So not I said flush, but really that wasn't a flush. Not a flush by any means, and not a quick trade or not a huge ripper of a trade, but the potential for a very stress-free trade to the downside after getting this retest and rejection. We had about 60 minutes of pushing to the lows, albeit slowly. It still did push down to about 101. So from trigger to low of the day, there was about a 3-point move there, which certainly would have moved the premium in the puts in this week's expiration. Whether you went at the money or you went out to 100, certainly the potential there. Now you can see that our trigger to the upside was getting above this late day high from yesterday, which was confluent with this channel break. Now this high was also a rejection at AVWAP from the swing high, from the December 8th swing high. So it was confluent with a few things. Obviously, price gap well below it. Didn't even really give us a test of that trend line until the end of the day, where it broke it and then retested and held it right at the very last 10-minute candle. So we'll see going into tomorrow if this is an official breakout of this trend line and price wants to move higher. So I will say that this will likely be on tomorrow's day trade idea list. And we'll probably move this down here to this 109 spot, which I will confirm with TrendSpider is likely where that swing high, that swing high AVWAP sits now, as it has moved down with price moving down. I will confirm, but this looks like the potential for a pretty good trade if price wants to go ahead and get above that 109 mark, or I guess the high was 108.85 exactly, and then get in and fill the rest of this gap from this morning. Now, our trigger to the downside may stay very similar. It may stay in the same damn spot, because what that would mean is it would be getting back below that same level of support that price was able to finally get back above, and it would also be confluent with losing this trend line, which would be a bearish development. When a false breakout occurs, it usually is fueled with a downside move to an extent. And what I mean by a false breakout in this sense is a false breakout of this trend line. You can see price has been rejected at it all week, and then dating back to mid to the end of last week. So This would be a big level now for this to hold. This would be considered a retest and a confirmed successful retest if price can bounce from here. We'll see where it wants to open. And that will certainly have implications on this. Draftkings, another trigger to the downside, basically just getting below yesterday's low. It was the weekly low, nothing more complicated than that. Price, first 10-minute candle of the day, gap below the low, which wasn't the case when I had set the level. You can see it wicked up and filled the gap. Got the 10-minute close still above the level, and then the following 10-minute close was a rejection, and then pushed lower essentially to the end of the day. It bounced and then pushed lower towards the end of the day. So this was a bit tricky in that if you entered here, this did come back and get back above the trigger, but if you paid attention and noticed that our trigger to the downside was, or the upside was essentially confluent with, similar to AFRM, this downtrend break, then you could have been a bit more patient in holding your position, especially because today's Tuesday. So, right, so today's three or 4 days till expiration on the Friday calls. It's not like it's Friday where price has to go in our direction immediately. Today you could have had a bit more, you could have given the trade a bit more leeway for it to kind of decide where it wants to go. And if you did that, you could have been able to hold out for a trendline rejection and then a flush towards this low, and then price gave a little dead cat and then pushed lower again, and then another, and then pushed lower again. So not necessarily the easiest of trades here by any means. Usually price often takes the stairs down, or the stairs up and the elevator down, and in this case it really took the stairs down. So it made it a bit more difficult due to the chop here. Draftkings is known for that, unfortunately, but this continues to look really weak, broadly speaking, as we approach this 52-week low here. And it looks like price did break the trend line here at the end of the day, and then like AFRM pulled back, and maybe we get a retest. We'll see. This may not be the best drawn trend line either, just because of this long wick. It makes it a bit more confusing. But I think after that right there, I think that is in a pretty good spot. So we will see what DraftKings wants to do. SPY, similar to DraftKings, gapped. Following me developing the levels, gapped, ended up pushing even lower into close, gap below our trigger to the downside, but did close that first 10-minute candle back above, followed it with two other 10-minute candles that closed above, and then lost the level again. So right at that 464 and a half, just below, it was just this low from the bullish gap. So this December 7th bullish gap, this is last Tuesday's bullish gap up, where the entire market ripped on a gap and go. We basically just wanted to see if price wanted to get and stay below that level and work into this gap. So you can see price, the first 30 minutes did not. Then we got the 10-minute candle close above. Then we traded sideways, retested that level. So picture perfect, guys. And then finally got the rejection and a flush to the low of the day. So this was ideal. You get the alert in Discord. You pop on the chart and you see, okay, we've lost. We attempted to reclaim the level. We've lost the level. Now we're trading sideways. We've attempted to get back above the level and couldn't. Okay, we're likely going to go lower, so it's safe to put on a short. And from there, price pushed about 4 points lower. So trading SPY, you can use the Monday, Wednesday, Friday expiration if you so choose. So today being Tuesday, you could have used the Wednesday expiration, which would be the 12:15 puts, which makes it was one date till expiration. So theta is a bigger driver in that, but if price moves in your favor, delta is a bigger driver in boosting the premium. So in this case, that would have done just that. Had you put on, say, the 463s, or had you gone further out of the money and went to Friday and you put on the 460s, that was likely a really, really good trade. I did not personally trade SPY myself. I focused mainly on Uber. But you can see here at the end of the day, price did bounce at 460 support. So did we fully fill this gap? We will. It doesn't look like it to me. Not even close. Or, well, I guess close. But the gap goes down to, close here is 458.78. Today's low was 460.25. So we're still $2 off. So bulls did protect the gap by $2. That is a good sign. Although I'm hesitant to say a good sign, but that is a positive sign in such a negative week to start so far. So we'll see if that continues to hold, and if it does, price will go higher. If this remains unfilled, I can guarantee you price will go higher. Unfilled gaps to either side, bullish or bearish, are direct indications of where price is headed. The same can be said with today's gap down. Until this is filled, price will go lower. If this remains unfilled, this remains unfilled, we're just going to trade sideways between the two while the bulls and bears battle it out for direction. It sounds intuitive when you put it to words. It's like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense, right? Like it has to go higher if it's not going to fill the gap. But it's so often I see so many folks look at gaps as magnets for price when really, especially initially, they really can act as the inverse. And if they do act as the inverse, use that to your benefit. Not only do they provide direction, but they also provide trend lines, which I will show you in the focus list recap when we look at the Qs. The Qs landed today at a very peculiar spot, and it's no coincidence. Anyways, I digress. This will be a big level now for price to get back above tomorrow, this late high of the day, which was 464.44. So 464.50-ish will be a big spot tomorrow. Okay, so Uber against the grain broke to the upside. And we can see here that, let me just make this bigger so we can get the whole picture. Coming into the session, Uber was relatively strong at the end of yesterday in comparison to the market. From the lows of the day, it pushed considerably off of them right at 35 support. So, not that I necessarily thought price was going to continue to push higher from that, but we used that level as our trigger to the downside considering how strong it was. If price was able to get below that spot, it was clearly that, or it would have been clear that all of those buyers there were gone and they were now trapped from yesterday, so they likely would have caused a flush, but that didn't happen. Price did push higher and got above yesterday's high, which was our trigger to the upside, and that was just partly due because it was confluent with the December 9th high downtrend. So we had a high here, or we had a point of reference for this trend line from the December 10th high, which was exactly in line with the December 9th high. So we wanted to see price get above that. And you can see here in the first 10-minute candle of the day, we had this huge igniting bar followed by a wick at above yesterday's high. So creating a new weekly high that was pulled back, or it did pull back, and Uber is volatile, so it's known to do this. And then it pushed higher and got back above that trend line. And then that final 10-minute candle retested the trend line. You can see right where my cursor is, there's this little wick that bounced right off the line, and then we got the 10-minute close. We got the retest on the next 10-minute candle. Price came back, retested that level, used it as support, and then ripped. I'm talking calls, the 37 calls that I was in went up almost 100% in minutes. It was bananas, and this would be a good example of, I don't have them on the charts when I share them just to reduce the noise, but if you're paying attention to volume, Uber was telling us that this was going to really move. Look at this volume that came in right here on this 10-minute bar that was followed by another really big push higher. So I unfortunately did not pay as much mind to the volume as I should have, and I stopped my full position out right at this trend line from the December 7th high. So you can see we had a point of reference at the December 8th high. So this was a double stacked trend line that we were looking for price to get above, and I saw this big wick, and I saw over like 110% of my calls, and I said, okay, this is against the market. The market's pulling back. I don't like the dynamic from that standpoint. Let's not be greedy, and I'll take it off. Had I waited, though, and paid attention a bit more to volume, you could have seen that this was probably going to go higher considering the huge influx that came in. And sure enough, it did, and it hit a high just below 38.50, and those 37 calls actually almost tripled. So that's okay. I'm just as fine with the winner in itself, but you can see that price did then pull back, retest this trend line, got below it briefly, but then quickly got back above and then used it as support here intraday and traded sideways. So this is now a big level to hold for Uber. And I was surprised to see it break both against the market. The market was bloody today, and Uber had at one point, it closed up 4%, but at one point I believe it was up, oh well, I don't need to guess. I can tell you exactly what it was up. Yeah, it was. I was going to say up almost 10%. It was up 9% at the highs today. So a really big day from Uber. I hope you guys were able to crush this trade. I know I saw a few people in the Discord and Twitter shared that they did. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I hope this helped, guys. Thank you for thank you for watching, and thank you for your support. Have a great night.